Hi there, it's Kevin with Deckbuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Tuesday Brews Day. Right? We could just be a day late on everything this week, correct? It still counts. If I did Market Monday on a Tuesday, I can do Tuesday Brews Day on a Wednesday. I'm going to try to bring back this series, but we need to go into a little bit of a story time first and a little bit of a rant time and explain where I've been in the last, 2-3 years with Magic the Gathering when it comes to the design of this game we call Magic, this format we call Standard. I don't think that Pioneer or Modern or Legacy or Commander are in much better space. I've had rant video after rant video about this design issue after design issue after design issue. And I had to do a lot of self-reflecting, though, to see if there is a way for me to enjoy Magic the Gathering again. There has been so many people that have reached out and wanted me to come back that I have a unique voice and a unique way of actually playing Magic the Gathering you don't see elsewhere. So I've told the story many, many times of how I got into rogue deck building. It was kind of a meme. I was at a Grand Prix. We'll just do the TLDR version of it this time. I was at Grand Prix, and before day one of the Grand Prix, you can do these things called, you can do qualifiers or grinders is what they were called back in the day, where if you won a 5-round tournament, if you didn't lose a match in a 5-round tournament, you could get 3 buys for the next day for the Grand Prix. And it was my very first Grand Prix that I ever played in, and I was playing a unconventional deck that I brewed, a home brew. And round number 2, I was going up against a self-proclaimed pro that traveled around everywhere, and already had 2 buys, but was just trying to get that 3rd buy and trying to get some experience again, kind of play testing before the day 1 of the GP. Well, lo and behold, I had kind of a scenario that actually happened more than often. It used Chancellor of the Tangle and Mana Dorks to try to cheat out a card called Hero Bladehold. And at the time, the format was so Slagstorm dependent, and what made Hero Bladehold so good is it was a 3-4. And so it dodged Slagstorm, was able to recover, and then it was aggressive enough that it actually win that game before the opponent could actually get a Primeval Titan down and really take back the game. So that was my strategy. I knew we were going to go up against about a 35% meta of the Primeval Titan deck. I mean, net decking has always been an issue. I don't have anything against people playing Tier 1 decks, but it has always been an issue since the start of Magic the Gathering of people gravitating towards the best deck. And so what used to be very, very fun as a brewer was to be able to find that angle and be able to exploit that angle and then build a deck, a homebrew deck, and be successful with your own angle. So that was my whole game plan, and it just worked out like a charm that match. And really that day, that pre-day 1, lo and behold, the meta shifted the next day to Delver, and then my deck had a pretty terrible matchup versus Delver, but I digress there. But at least for that grinder, I was able to 2-0 my opponent, and he was super, super salty, got up from his chair and just slammed in his chair and said, thanks for wasting my money, thanks for wasting your money, have fun losing with your rogue deck. And basically told me there's no way I'd ever be successful with it. Lo and behold, I went on and 5-0'd that tournament, or the grinder, and got my 3 buys. And it was just such a satisfying thing to watch the salt just pour from that self-proclaimed pro, that it solidified, and it was such a catchy name too, that it solidified the name Rogue Deck Builder. And I think I've been quite successful with some brews. I got pretty wacky there for a while. A lot of people do miss my wacky brews, and I used to have a lot of fun doing those and losing, and I'd have a smile on my face when I lost. I think, though, I really do suffer from imposter syndrome, where I never feel like I quite make it. And so I'll become successful at something and be like, well, people are going to find out that that was just luck. Or people are going to find out I'm not as good as they think I was. And I think I've had a lot of success after then tuning Soul Sisters to a Pro Tour qualifier win, top 8ing with the thing I called Jund Dredge during the Theros standard that utilized a Lotleth Troll and a few other cards that people actually weren't playing at the time period. It was all mono black and mono blue and Esper Control, and I found a deck that worked very good against all 3 of those and was able to do quite successfully during that time period. And I think I still think the best run I've ever had is with that Marionette Master combo, where I was able to go 21-0 on MTG Arena, winning 3 of the 7-0s in a row with that, and just had a very good rating with the Marionette Master combo. Which no one was really talking about, no one was really playing with, was a card that was definitely an obscure card. So even though I have the evidence that I've been successful, I have just become more and more kind of bitter to how the game has become with how the direction of the balancing issues have. And you might be able to argue that it's always been this way, that they've just been, since Arena, they've just been more gung-ho about, banning cards because they really need to shake it up and can't wait for rotations. That is definitely a valid argument, but I am going to make the argument that the design has just failed us when it comes to Standard. Both the playtest and just the actual design has failed us, and they've just created so many pushed cards, the layers upon layers and upon layers of problems that I think that Standard has would require so many bans that it just isn't worth it. The biggest issues they've basically printed the best creatures ever recently. I know they've wanted creatures to play a pivotal role, but I don't even think that Tarmogoyf would be playable right now in Standard. I think that it'd just be outclassed by many of these other cards because it doesn't have an ETB effect or doesn't really do much of this kind of recurring format where the graveyard's very important, but it can get exiled. You got Scavenging Ooze in the format. I mean, I really don't think it could justify a 2-drop slot. I mean, you could make the argument for like getting a fast Great Henge out, but I'm just trying to show that even Tarmogoyf is kind of pitiful when you compare it to many of these cards that have been printed. And I've just been frustrated because I come up with these cool brews, and it basically just, why not just play rogues? So I've got this blue-black brew that was actually sponsored. So I've got a patron that really wants to see me coming back to brewing, chose 2 cards. The 2 cards that he chose for this brew experiment were the Skyclave, let's look at the deck. Skyclave, it's the kicker card. The Skyclave artifact. Let's just look up kicker. That's going to find it quicker. So I did have it in this deck, and of course I've now cut it. I apologize, Adrian. So Skyclave Relic was one of the cards, and the other card is, I still do have in the sideboard, is a Lithoform Engine, because I at least want to keep at least one card in the sideboard as an option. There actually have been some pretty amazing stuff done with the Lithoform Engine. So I started brewing with Skyclave Relic. There were a couple decks that I could make it run in shells that currently exist, like Mono Black. Ugin, I think, would be fine for the Skyclave Relic. Skyclave Relic doesn't pair with, though, the Forsaken Monument, though, that wants to be adding that extra mana, but it does give you that triple black, no problem, for like some of the cards that do require triple black. However, the kicker just isn't really utilized, and if you're just using it as a ramp spell, then I think Skyclave Relic is quite boring. I think you need to use the other part with the kicker. The other issue is that Skyclave Relic is kind of a liability with the 3-drop white creature, the core spirit, that can just exile something. So Indestructible, well, you lose your ramp to that, and you're pretty far back. The last thing I saw is like you do want big mana in these kicker decks. However, the 3 and 6, when you're on CMC 3 and CMC 6, are both pivotal turns. That Skyclave Relic is quite awkward. You don't really find out these things until you start building the decks and playing with them. And I tried a number of different shells, and they either it could work in a shell that already exists, or it was just a very, very weak card in the kicker, which I definitely wanted to showcase. So, I don't know. This puts me at a crossroads. I really, really want to enjoy Magic the Gathering, but even playing this, I played this deck to Platinum before we had the reset a couple days ago, and then I've almost got to Platinum again with this shell. However, it almost feels like when I play this, it's just, in Standard now, it just feels like you need to be doing something big. You need to be playing Great Henge, or you need to be ramping with into Ugin with things like the Genesis Ultimatum, or Rogues just strictly outclass everything else you can kind of do in a tempo-based shell. I think that Rogues, I think that shell is absolutely playable in like Modern and Legacy, because those are some of the most high-powered cards. They have Flash. They all have Enter the Battlefield or attack triggers. They have a lot of utility. It's really, really supported right now. It's a very, very high-powered Standard deck in the scope of things. It really feels like the old-school Delver decks. It almost feels like Caw-Blade to me in the form that's a control deck, which is just sheer vast potential as a tempo deck. And then if we also look at like Gruul is very powerful with the Gruul landfalls, and there's just a lot of, it's very, very tough to beat many of these decks because they have it all going for them. Usually when we used to build decks, like you had the whole rock, paper, scissors aspect of decks, is there would be some sort of glaring hole. Mono red could run out of steam. Same thing with like Mono Green Stompy. It could run out of steam. Or possibly you didn't have any utility to kill a planeswalker or a particular creature. A lot of these decks, like when you add Great Henge into the mix, or you put so many of these effects on creatures, it shears up these holes and makes these decks very, very complete. That the format, instead of being a rock paper scissors format, becomes a coin flip format of who actually draws their right cards at the right time, or who really draws their Hail Marys. So cards like Embercleave, cards like the Great Henge, cards like Ugin, cards like if you get, two of your rogues right in a row for the rogues deck, are deciding the games rather than skill, rather than really outplaying your opponents. And it's more of this coin flippy type format, and it's just really isn't fun. So here's my crossroads. Either somehow I have to shake this imposter syndrome, and I have to shake this idea that I have to be successful, that I have to find this niche way of doing things, or I can just be okay with, really tuning a deck to the best of its ability, and then maybe I will find that Marriott Master deck hidden gem sometime in the future, despite all these really, really high-powered cards that exist now in Standard. Again, the issue with Standard that I have had, I've talked about this in another video, is all of the decks that you see right now, like Gruul, like Dimir, like even the Cycling deck, I know it doesn't see a lot of play right now, or like the Genesis Ultimatum, is these decks built themselves. There was no brewing involved. It was just slapping together the strictly best slots of what you're trying to do, and then just go all in on them. They created so many ramp cards that ramp is just a dog given. They created the payoffs for it. It's got all the things to share in the early control, the late game finish, things like that. Rogues, they printed just the exact amount of rogues to make a perfect rogue mill strategy work. And same thing with Gruul Landfall. They printed the exact amount of cards that these are the strictly best in their slot. Maybe like 5-10 cards you're able to customize, but all in all, these decks are all very, very similar. And I know the comment sections are going to be full of people talking to me about how their mono white deck works, or how their mono black recursion life gain deck works. They don't work in the scope of things. You are playing one of the top, I would say, 4 decks with Yorion, with the various different rogues, if they're going the Lurrus route, or if they're going the Brazen Borrower route. Then if they're in Gruul is basically the same. You can even put like food in that mix. Food works a little bit different, but I mean, you have a handful of decks, 5 to 6 decks that are actually playable in the tier, and they're very complete decks, and it's very, very tough to attack them without just having massive holes against the other deck that you'll be seeing more and more. So basically what I'm saying is right now in Standard, and this has been true in Standards of the past, but to a lesser extent, is you need to pick a complete deck and go with it. And brewing is pretty much non-existent at this point in time. So again, I'm at that crossroads. I need to somehow be able to shake this whole idea that I always have to be successful, and just go back to maybe having fun brewing decks and tuning decks and being, successful as far as that. Like getting to platinum, but don't expect to get very far. I'm sure if I wanted to really grind, I could make it to mythic in a long time, but if I, just chose one of those tier decks, you could easily get there in a few days. So anyway, now that I'm 13 minutes into this rant about Tuesday Brews Day, about what I came up with, it gives you a little bit of backstory of where I've been, why you haven't seen content on the Rogue Deck Builder. That and the local game store has taken off, and it takes a lot of my time to dedicate towards running the business. I don't have the time I used to have to brew, and I don't know if that's ever going to be solved, but I am going to try to at least do one brew a week for Tuesday Brews Day, and maybe we can hit it again for like Thursday or Friday for a flex slot to revisit Pauper, to maybe brew a commander deck. And if I can ever get like an editor, I need like a team in place. Like I said, I don't have the time that I used to. If we could ever get that going again, that could definitely free up some time where I can, push the editing off to someone, push some of those responsibilities, and then be able to just, shoot, point, do the video, and have that being published where I can then still focus on my local business. Until then, I am going to commit to one brew a month, and I'll try to keep my salt intake, my salt levels down to a healthy dose, rather than just completely yelling at the clouds like I've been doing in the past few years. Just really just being grumpy that my old school way of doing Magic is no longer a thing. What I hope for in the future, though, is that they actually do playtest these cards, and they actually do balance these cards. So one of the striking issues with this kicker deck is they seem to be very, very, very Well, they erred on the side of cautious. They were very cautious with when they printed these kicker cards. And when you try to like just compare with like rogues or compare with what they're doing with some of the other stuff, it is just it's outclassed. So, for example, this Inscription of Insight is just quite weak compared to something like Tornado or Into the what can I think of the Into the Story. Like these cards are just way more efficient at really doing what you want to do with Inscription of Insight. Even cards like the Corhell Chronicler don't really have as big of payoffs as you'd think. And even some of these other kicker cards, first of all, I don't think we had enough of the high octane kickers, but a lot of these kickers are sorcery speed, which makes it really, really tough when everything has flash and everything has haste in this format. So sorcery is just such a liability on removal. So the best card in the deck is definitely going to be Into the Royal. So this whole idea was sparked upon by Kicker. That's why I called it Dimir Kicking It. It used to be trying to get like a big big mana lithoform engine, followed by having the tempo that's created by the Roost of Drakes, and eventually you can, after you control the board, Lithoform Engine can do a lot of work with copying spells and copying triggers, and then you can just, there are some really, really cool combos in this deck. It reminds me of a Pauper deck I used to run. So there's cards like Blood Beckoning, the return a creature in your hand, and then it has Kicker, so it triggers your Kicker things, and then you also have the 2-drop Tasm Royal Mage, which can get us insert sorcery back with Kicker. So, for example, if you had Blood Beckoning and you kicked it, you could get back 2 Tasm Royal Mages, and then you could then get back more spells, and then it's just this really super grindy deck that could go the distance. The problem with this is there's just so many Hail Marys in Standard that good luck getting that scenario happening of being able to really tempo and lock out your opponents through this grindy type strategy. There's also a lot of graveyard removal that ends up happening. There's a lot of things that just shut this sort of thing down. And so I have kind of relegated Blood Beckoning to the sideboard, gone down to 1 Tasm Royal Mage, and just stuck with really what worked. So for Kicker to work, I think we need a little more payoffs here. The good news is I think that going into Pioneer, there has been some potential with these cards that I think does have potential in Pioneer. The big surprise is Seagate Stormcaller is a much better card than I first gave it credit for. It is like a sorcery speed Snapcaster Mage, but in this deck it can do some pretty sweet stuff. There have been times where you just have some obscene mana. That was another whole thing with the Skyclave artifact, is you could generate a lot of mana, and then if you could get up to 10 mana, which I know 10 mana is a joke, I understand that, but if you get up to 10 mana, you can actually copy Into the Royal twice, and then it could bounce back 3 permanents, draw 3 cards. You can do some pretty crazy things like then Into the Rolling back Seagate Stormcaller, and then being able to get another big play off with like a Tasm Royal Mage. Again, you can get this like loop going, and I've been successful with these type of decks in Pauper before, and they're really, really fun to play. These Dimir, kind of recycling your graveyard through spells and creatures getting back spells and spells getting back creatures. So that was kind of the idea of the deck. It still is fun, and still is as competitive as possible. I'm sure there's some tuning left to do with this, and I'll have other iterations where it's going to be a stronger deck than it is right now. But as it stands right now, I think it's about as good as you can get it. Well, let's go down the list now, and I'll quit rambling now that we're 20 minutes into my deck. So first of all is Roost of Drakes. This is the whole point to playing the deck. Basically, if you're going to beat ninjas, or not, rogues, not ninjas. If you're going to beat rogues, you need to slam a Roost of Drakes. If you get a Roost of Drakes actually out, then you can start getting the value. The 2/2s actually do pretty well. They can block the 3/2 Death Touch Rogue. They can block Brazen Borrowers if they're that route. They can actually create a bunch of tempo, and every one of your spells, your kicker spells, is going to generate them, and most of your kicker spells are going to match up pretty well against the rogues to begin with. So Roost of Drakes is the big payoff for this deck. The other 1-drop kicker spells, Blood Chief's Thirst. This deck, it's pretty good. The problem is sorcery speed is a liability in this format. Things like Questing Beast get in for damage. The flashers flash in. You even have the other elemental from Gruul that gives a lot of problems, the 1/1 that then has landfall. So those things are a problem with Blood Chief's Thirst. Really wish this would have been an instant speed. I obviously can see why it can't be an instant speed, because the power level might be a little bit too high if they put it for instant speed. Wish they would somehow added flash if you kicked it. That would have been a good upside, but somehow in the rules I know that would be absolutely a headache for the flash ability for the kicker effect. I don't know how they would be able to. Maybe in fact, maybe they should have done that with this particular format. Is spice kicker up and then made it have built-in flash if you did kick it. But kicker is kind of a weird thing, as you pay it as an additional. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they could have done it, but this would have been a much better card, of course, if this did have flash. Then we are going to run the best card, like I said, that does have flash because it's instant. It's Into the Royal. This card puts in a lot of work. You can do some tricky stuff like bouncing back your own permanents that are getting targeted, and it is just going to get you that 2/2 Drake, draw you a card, keep you in that tempo. It's the perfect card for this deck. The Seagate Stormcaller is very, very good. It has a lot of synergy of just casting it for 2 and then casting a 1-drop spell, so it's very pivotal too on like turn 3. Bloodchief's Thirst can kill 2 things often, and if you do have 6 mana, Bloodchief's Thirst can kill like a Planeswalker and something else. I've been able to like kill an Ugin and a Yorion in the same turn, or I can't remember what the scenario was, but 2 big permanents by just casting 2 mana and then the 4 mana for the Bloodchief's Thirst. This card puts in a lot of work with some of the sideboard cards like Duress on turn 3. So you can actually rip 2 cards out of their hand and still have a 2/1 back. It's no Snapcaster Mage, but it's pretty decent in this deck. Still, I'm going to run the one of Tazim Royal Mage, as it can get back a pivotal card. Oftentimes, what it's getting back is you use it as your 5th Extinction Event, as Extinction Event is super, super good in this meta. I am running a one of Agonizing Remorse. This is where like Blood Beckoning or Agonizing Remorse could be the slot for this main versus side, or you could even think about putting another card in the main, like another win condition, like a Shark Typhoon. The Eliminate is pretty good. I like running a 3/1 combination between Heartless Act and Eliminate, which they kind of cover each other. The land that turns into a creature is sort of a pain, and both of them do deal with it if it's just the first activation. With Heartless Act removing those counters at will, if it is creature form, will kill it, and Eliminate will actually kill it because it's converted mana cost 3 or less. So I like having a little more options with a 3/1 split. Coiled Chronicler is okay. It was much better in my earlier versions with like the kicker artifact, and I had like a few other kicker spells in here higher, like I had more inscriptions because it always found something. It sometimes does not find things. The loot effect is pretty decent too, because this deck does tend to start to flood out or start to get some cards that are redundant at that point, and the Coiled Chronicler allows you to ditch them. Come in the sideboard with the Skyclave Shade. It's pretty good just to ditch Skyclave Shades and then be able to cast them back. Skyclave Shade, the reason why it's in the sideboard is it really doesn't match up versus a lot of matchups. It's pretty bad against everything but Dimir Rogues, I would say. And it's not even that great versus Dimir Rogues, because having a 3/1 can't block. If this sucker could block, I would change my tune. I mean, it would be the perfect card. Again, they just seem to be so conservative with the Skyclave Shade that by having that not block, though, I don't feel it works in this type of shell. There is another kicker with the Nullhide Priest or something like that. But Nullhide Priest also doesn't have a lot of synergy because we don't have a lot of enter the battlefield effects in this deck. A lot of them are kick-based effects, so just simply returning creature from the graveyard to the battlefield doesn't really do much for this deck. So it's a card that I didn't even decide to put in the deck. You could experiment with it. In my experimentations, it hasn't done well. We have one of Jace Mirror Mage. This card's actually pretty good in many matchups. I wish I had more room for it, but it's just not as good as the next card with his Gadwick the Wizened. Gadwick the Wizened has a lot of synergy with cards like Into the Royal. Being able to late game Into the Royal back a Gadwick is able to recast it, refill your hand. This card's actually pretty sweet. It actually makes your Into the Royals even better by tapping down a permanent. We have Inscription of Insight. Really wish this would have been instant speed. I think it would have been fair at instant speed because the kicker is just so high. Returning 2 creatures instant speed for 4 mana, I think that's fine. Creating a blue illusion based on the cards in your hand, I think that's fine. And scrying 2 and drawing 2 cards at instant speed, I think would have been fine. Again, this would have been something that I think that the kicker could have added flash, and it would have balanced this card much better, rather than just having 4 mana to create that illusion, which might have been a little bit pushing it over the top. I do, it is strictly better than some of these 4 mana sorcery cards that people have played in the past. I get that. They're kind of experimenting with these choice cards, but I really wish that it would have been an instant speed. Extinction Event, again, one of the better cards in the format, takes care of a lot of threats right now. 2 of the flex cards with the Hagra Mauling, it's just usually land unless you need to destroy a creature, and the Seagate Restoration, same thing. I don't think either one of these hurt the deck too much we're going to run a little bit heavy on the lands because this is a big mana deck with basically 25 lands, because these are usually played as lands, with the 6 islands, 5 swamps, and 4 Clearwater Path, 4 Temple of Deceit, and the 4 Fabled Passages. The sideboard, the duresses are strictly to come in with Necromentia versus Ugin decks. If you can actually slow down Yora and Ugin decks by taking their key pieces, these 2 cards are exactly what you need. Skyclave Shade comes in versus more recursion, need to be a little more aggressive. I'll bring the Skyclave Shades in. Lithoform Engine, I typically just keep in the sideboard, because I don't think I talked about the Fae of Wishes. I just think Fae of Wishes is just a clutch card in a big mana deck to then give you more power to grab stuff out of the sideboard. I might need to go down into Duress, put like a counter spell, something that makes Fae of Wishes a little bit better. But as of now, I just like running the one of Fae of Wishes. It doesn't hurt. It's pretty good versus many different matchups. Then we have the Thieving Skydiver. This is just kind of a cute card. I don't know if it justifies its slot, but you can actually take some fun stuff. There's the artifact that draws cards. There are a few other artifacts that are worthwhile to take. I've never been able to get up to like an Embercleave effect, but it's or like a Great Henge. That'd be hilarious to steal a Great Henge, but that's 9 mana at that point. Same thing with the Embercleave, it's 6 mana. But there have been some scenarios where I've taken some snakes for just 1 mana, and then you can grab a snake that's been put a lot of mana into. So Thieving Skydiver is kind of cute when they do run artifacts. Ashiok Nightmare Muse, this comes in versus if you need more, if you're playing against other tempo-based decks or you need to go over the top of other creature-based decks, it's a good card. Same thing as Shark Typhoon, it's just a flex card. Both these are usually the targets that I grab with the Fae of Wishes in the first of the game 1. So, huge in-depth deck tech for this deck. We're going to play a few games here. I know some people don't appreciate these in-depth stuff, but it is what it is. My style. You guys will have to deal with it. Alrighty, so let's play some games here. So I'm going to play best of 2s with Dimir. We're going to try... I do need to get going here soon. I do need to get some work done. But we'll play... I'm going to give you at least 2 games, depending on how long they are, with this deck. And hopefully we can get a good flow going and whatnot, get some good matchups here. So... Alrighty, so this seems like a keepable hand. We have Jace to get us back in this. I'm probably just going to run the Mauling out on turn number 1 because, we're not casting it anytime soon with the no black mana. And we do want the 4 mana on time. So Swamp is probably going to be Rogues, and this can be a pretty weak hand versus Rogue, especially if they have the Flash Rogue. And this is, again, so frustrating about this format is why play anything? Like, this card is as powerful as Tarmogoyf. Thieves Guild Enforcer is as powerful as Tarmogoyf. And they printed it in Standard, and they not only printed it in Standard, but they gave it so much support. So the problem is we might just be able to get controlled out here because the counter spells are also super clutch in the Rogue. We're just going to run a Chronicler. If it hits, it hits it. It most likely won't hit, though, because the Lofty Denial will get it. Or, it can't do the other one. The 2 mana counterspell because it is higher converted mana cost because we are on the play, not the draw. Opponent can decide to take care of it. Yeah, I don't really care. Hopefully it's going to get me a card here. If it doesn't, then I'm going to cry. It does get me into the Royal, though. So we're in decent shape. Our balance effects are pretty weak versus this Rogue deck, though. Okay, so this is the Lurrus deck that is not running Lurrus. So they might still be running the Ninjutsu Rogue. So they did get rid of my Roost, which is the best card in the game. And I could just run out an Extinction Event. I think we will run out an Extinction Event right here because there's nothing better to do. So I'm just going to do it. It's going to get countered by the Drown. But if it doesn't get countered, we're in decent shape. Yeah, Drown the Lock, we knew that was coming. That's, again, what's so broken about the Thief's Guild Enforcer is they put, basically they put every rogue that this deck wanted. So a draw rogue, a rogue that tribal that buffs them up the rogue. There's a Zanrith, so Zanrith is going to grab. I don't know what they're going to take here. Kind of a weak Zarasan Zanrith. Zarasan is kind of weak here, but I'm pretty milled and down to basically nothing, and that's actually pretty interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for Into the Royal. Like, Inscription of the Insight has to happen here, but then my opponent just recasts everything, and then I get remilled. So this has to happen. And Extinction Event is going to get milled, unfortunately. Can I survive a turn and then just try to slam it is the question. Okay, so we can do this right now rather than have it be countered. I'm going to kick the Gadwick. That gives us the Extinction Event. And this is our only chance to getting back in this game. Is my opponent not having a counter spell, and then we Extinction Event on 1. So I'm going to get milled again with the Merfolk Windrobber. Okay, oh, now we've lost. Another thing that I can't stand about this too is they supported mill so much with Into the Story. Into the Story was supposed to be a card that was like, okay, if you've gone this long game, it's going to be undercosted. And things like the Thieves Guild Enforcer and then the Crab can make this card just like immediately be undercosted. My opponent did tap out though. Let's see. Hopefully they put in an odd. But the problem is that we're going to get huge advantage, and they put an even here. So even actually really, really hurts us. So the good news is we can go an Extinction Event and maybe just put out a Seagate Stormclaw to block. Yeah, we'll Extinction Event for the odds. And that gets everything but the Royal Mage. And then I do just have to chuck this Stormcaller out just to block, because I'm down to 4 life. Half my deck is milled, and I'm down to 4 life. It just shows you, like, why not play rogues? when all the cards just have this huge, like, punch to them. And we will make a trade here. And it is what it is with the trade. I mean, our opponent could have 4 dead cards, but even that, though. We got another Extinction Event. I think we just have to slam a Gadwick. And if Gadwick doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. We're going to do it for 4. And it's going to be countered. There's no way there's not another Drown in the Lock. Or another Into the Story to refill. No way, no how. Our opponent could also flash into Brazen Borrower and just kill us. Thieves Guild Enforcer. Okay. And you slow rolling me? Cling to Dust. Okay, Cling to Dust is trying to draw a card and see if they are just slow rolling me had it the entire time. No, okay. So the thing is, any removal spell 2 wins the game. And there's a 0 chance my opponent does not have one of those cards in the mix here. And come on. Don't slow roll me, dude. And we did find nothing. So now you can just kill it and then win the game. Okay, you got to draw. You have an Into the Story that can also find. Really? Okay, and there's so many things. Another one of these ninjutsu rogues wins it too. Yep. All right. Yep. And I can't even concede here. It's not even going to let me. All right. We are dead. Alrighty. So, on to the sideboard. The sideboard, like, you can bring in things like Duress, which are okay. The Shades are going to come in. I think we're just going to try to win. The Shark Typhoon actually is pretty decent in this one because we can cycle it. I don't know if a Shark Typhoon is actually that great. Sometimes you can cycle it and get in with some cards. The card that is good is Blood Beckoning. It can get us back in with the card advantage. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of room for us to cut because we need all of our removal. The Roost of Drakes is super good. I'm not sure Fae of Wishes does a lot here because what is it going to get out of our sideboard? It could get us like a Shark Typhoon. I'm going to cut the Fae. It's just too slow and it's not going to do much. Jace is sort of a liability. Jace isn't going to get where we want to get. We want the Agonizing Remorse. Probably isn't what we want to be doing on a turn number 2. I could see Duresses coming in. Duresses can get the Into the Story out. But we want all of our removal. The biggest issue too is like cards like the land on one side and the return creatures from graveyard to the battlefield is such a problem card for us too. And usually rogues do run at least 1 to 2 of those. I could cut like a land because we don't need as big of mana. So the Seagate Restoration We'd want everything else though. The insight's pretty bad. Yep, the insight's pretty bad in this deck, in this matchup. So I'm gonna go with this, and hopefully the Skyclave Shades can get us there and at least provide like aggro versus this. But this is a pretty, like, the only way you win this matchup is you slam a Roost on turn number 1. And so it's almost like you need to, you know, mulligan to a Roost. This one's weird. Like, Into the Royals are actually pretty bad. It's a 4-lander. I am going to start thinning out with Fabled Passage. No, Fabled Passages help there. Yeah, help there. Yeah, I probably should have started off with the turn 1 Fabled Passages, cracked it. But, yep. I don't know. We'll do the turn 2, though. So, Rogue's going to come down here and mill me. Because one of the things, too, that Arena's programmed in on this matchup is they always have a Rogue turn 1. Because they need to make it even more frustrating. So, here comes the Thief. And we get milled. And it's going to mill 2 Roosts. Mills a Roost and a Bloodchief's Thirst. Yeah, Into the Royal is pretty pathetic versus this matchup. I could have thought about taking Into the Royal out. Still don't need... We'll do Temple. Too bad we didn't have a Temple last time. Probably, it doesn't matter what we put on top. We'll just put a Fabled Passage on top because it's going to get milled. Because they're going to flash in another one. Yep, so we get the Fabled Passage gone. But, I mean, this is how aggressive this deck is. It's now going to be one more Rogue, and it's going to be a 3. It's going to be a 4/2. And Extinction Event is kind of weak here, too. Haven't found one of our Skyclaves. And Into the Royals are just so bad. And I think my opponent just keeps up counter magic. And unfortunately, I'm going to thin out some more. Maybe we can get rid of all of our lands and not draw another one. So Fabled Passages are done. We actually don't even have that many lands left in the deck. They've all been milled. I got to just Extinction Event here. It's such a bad play. I think we go for... I think that the Thieves Guild Enforcer is actually more powerful. So I'm going to go Odd. It's such a bad 4 mana to kill something that, you know, it's already done its job. Oh, boy. Okay, Fabled Passage. My opponent didn't even have the opportunity to counterspell, so I don't think they have it. So now at least we can Into the Royal. But it does seem like they have... Huh. Interesting. Okay. We can not draw lands. That would be awesome. But too many flash cards. Like Brazen Borrow is probably in this version. They can flash it in. And Into the Royal is so bad to, on my turn, flash it. So we're going to go to damage. Still haven't found one of our... So we're going to go past the blockers. Alright, now we'll try for an Into the Royal. And if it hits, it hits. If it gets counterspelled, it gets counterspelled. But we're already down to 23 cards in our graveyard. Our Blood Beckoning's gone, and I believe our Royal Mage, so we're not going to get any value that way. And I think we're too slow to really come back from this. Opponent just passes the turn. I guess we just pass the turn back to our opponent. So they flash in the Soaring Thief. Okay. Yeah, what is in my opponent's hand? So we let that happen again. It still doesn't do what we need it to do. And I think right now we'll just take a Soaring. I actually should have waited for damage. Okay, so negate happens. That's fine. And unfortunately, we're just taking the 2. Probably should have just Bloodchief Thirst. Oh boy. A Wind Robber. So we can go a Chronicler. Do I want the land? I think I do. So see what the Chronicler does. My opponent decides to do counter target creature spell or Planeswalker. Yep, it happens. But we can kill this Soaring Thief, but I believe that we're going to have a problem with both... I I think we can play this land now. It's fine, just for more mana. We're going to have a problem with both getting milled. Like, we're half our deck gone and half our life gone. And that's why this Rogue's deck, it hits you, you know, both of those. We still haven't had one of our 3/1s milled. So Lurrus is just a hard, like, just running Lurrus in here. So that's going to be rough. Yeah, it's just going to have to happen. And let's see if I can draw a... Jeez. Unfortunately, can't get another Skyclave in there. We don't have a Roost either, though, so now we have to get desperate here. That's the fourth. Gadwick. Gadwick is not happening on the right turn. So we set our opponent back a turn. We have, yeah, basically all the rest of our cards in our deck are gas. We do still have a lot of lands. It milled like a huge run of non-lands there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. And see if my opponent's like in a Brazen Borrower. No, Brazen Borrower can't hit me. Or can't come in. He's 1 mana short. See if my opponent goes for Lurrus again. All right, cool. Got a land. We'll take that. Where are my roosts? And the thing is, do I just need to enter the royal? No, I think as long as we're doing this, we're fine. So I'm in a roost. If this gets countered, though, I'm in really, really bad shape. It does not. Okay, so we're actually in decent shape. So I'm doing this just so my opponent has to recast Lurrus again. But if this one gets countered, then I'm in bad shape. Oh, okay, it actually does hit. So I'm going to continue to play lands because big mana at this point is pretty decent. So what in the world does my opponent have in their hand? All right, they found the other black. Now we're in trouble because this allows for the Skyclave or the Soaring. Okay, so I got to make a choice here. Do I want to get milled even more? That's fine. I think I can get milled because we can actually block it. Hey, we found the Skyclave. Maybe I should have kept some lands in my hand. And we can block here. My opponent will probably sacrifice it to draw a card. Okay. Did use their Lurrus card, though. See if I can come back with this. So Gadwick the Wizened, I could be running right into a counterspell here. Oh boy. So we can recast the Skyclave, but I think we just slam this. We need to slam it. And if my opponent has a Mystical Dispute, they just have a Mystical Dispute and we lose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I need to fill back up my hand. So we are going to yeah, we're going to cast it for 6. Even though that puts us very close to getting milled. Okay, hits. We are back in this, sort of. Didn't draw a land, though. Can't block the 2/3 flyer. Opponent can just recast. Has a Lurrus mana. Can recast the Wind Robber. I have to make a block on this Soaring Thief because of the Ninjutsu card. And we get milled some more. And no land to get back what we need. We do block. Extinction Event's actually very interesting here. All right, Fabled Passage is also very interesting because we get 2 Skyclaves back. But it's too little too late. I am milled. So even if damage-wise, we need to kill the Lurrus. Okay, so my opponent has a Cling in here. So I do need to cast one of these. Least gives us some aggro. So attack in. My opponent's going to block. We're definitely going to attack in with Gadwick. Heartless Act. That is definitely fine. Now, do I go for an Into the Royal? Or... we only have one black, unfortunately. So I can go black. Okay. This is what we're going to do. So now we're going to go Stormcaller. I'm not even sure if Fabled Passage has something for me. And he's going to go for... that's fine. I mean, it's fine. He counters it. We do need to kill Loris here, I believe. Or do we want to... yeah, because the Loris just keeps getting back. So let's go eliminate on Loris. And if there's a counterspell, there's a counterspell. Negate. Alrighty, that's all she wrote. We're going to get milled now. Opponent can actually even attack with Loris if they wanted to. Thief Guild Enforcer. That's going to do it. Like, can we come back? Ooh, that hit both my lands. That's terrible. And might as well block here. My opponent's going to sack the Merfolk Wind Robber anyway, so... because it's 2 more. Mill with Loris. Yep, draws a card. So Extinction Event has to hit. And we do have a Heartless Act, but I'm not sure we have enough. I'm not sure we have enough cards left from getting milled. So it wasn't damage this time, it's going to be mill that gets us. Opponent is like drawing for another Thief Guild? Fabled Passage. Into the Story. Refills up. Okay, so... we're going to go for Extinction Event. First we're going to do it first to see if it gets countered. If it gets countered, it's over. And we are definitely going to do odd. Because we save everything. And I could roost here. I can't take any more. We're going to Into the Royal on my opponent's turn? No, we need a Heartless Act. I need more information with a Heartless Act. I'm not even sure I have a basic land left in my deck. Okay, we could win this. I feel like I need to keep the Into the Royal up. But I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Probably should have gone for Roost here, actually, now I'm thinking about it. We have 5. So Skyclave a lot earlier would have been better. My opponent just has so much mana. You got to think with a handful. That's what I was worried about. The Agamon's Awakening. Only gets 2 back, though. And another Wind Robber. I don't think I can go for anything here. Unfortunately, I think I need to try. I don't know if there's a land, though. I really don't. There is. There's one more. Okay. Got my black land, though. So we Into the Royal. It doesn't do anything. We get Into the Royal, a Merfolk Wind Robber. Yeah, I think I had to go for it. So I hope my opponent actually counters this, because I don't want to draw a card. Perfect. So a miscast. Extinction event on odds again does sort of work, but it's the soaring thought thief that we have to go for. Mill. So I'm going to play it out. Go with odd again. Drown in the lock, huh? Do we get milled? 2, 2, 2. Oh, I can block some of them. I can block 2 of them, which is perfect. So I think I attack in with everything. This is actually pretty close. I'm surprised we're able to come back like we have. Gonna go with the Merfolk Wind Robber, huh? But then sacrifice it to draw a card. Okay. Decided not to block with the Soaring Thief, huh? That's interesting. We get 2 more of these suckers. And I'm just gonna hard cast this Skyclave. As we need another attacker. So, we haven't lost this. The odds are pretty terrible. We can block and get milled by 2. Any more thieves get us, and there's 2 thieves dead. Any more of these soaring thought thieves also get us. Opponent's probably going to draw a card and decide not to take the Drake. Does my opponent have 2 removal spells? That's interesting to go down to a 2. So opponent's going to desperation grab 1 more. So Soaring Thought Thieves don't work now. It's got to just be the regular mill thieves. Did we get it? Oh boy. We did not, because there's a regular mill thief. Derpa derpa. Well, let's go for it. Oh, wow. We're actually going to pull this off? Zero cards left? Okay, I will take it. I will take it. We had to outplay, and we had to basically... You know, Fee of Wishes I don't think is terrible in this matchup, now I think about it. Duress isn't either. There's so many counter spells. Do we just try to rip out the draw spells? Is that something I can actually afford to do? Like, Mauling is also pretty weak, but it's an instant speed. Is Gadwick just weak in this? I think we're just going to go on Rooster Drakes, and instead of going Gadwick, we're just going to try to rip out as much as possible. I'm wondering if even things like Agonizing Remorse is just good here. Necromentia. His Necromentia 1 of good too. All right, so I'm going to try a 1 of Necromentia, because if Necromentia hits, what do we name? If we name the Thief Skills Enforcer, is there enough mill to get us? Is the question. So I'm going to get out the Chroniclers. I don't know if Chroniclers are going to be good enough for this matchup. They're just kind of slow and awkward. And if we get the 1 of Necromentia, we hit that 1 of Necromentia. So that is going to be the play. See how well this works too. Traditionally, I don't want to go like Duresses against my opponent, because it's a losing battle to be filling up my own graveyard for the Into the Stories if I don't rip out the Into the Stories. This is oh my gosh, I want to keep this. I want to keep this. I'm going to keep it because a first turn Roost is so good. I can't stress that much how well a first turn Roost is. So we are begging to RNGesus here with being able to draw a black source within a few turns. I don't believe my opponent can counter it for just a regular island, right? Oh, wow. Okay, so we lost. Because Mystical Dispute, I didn't see any, so I thought my opponent was not on Mystical Disputes. And here's the bad part, as I think we are just pretty much screwed here with the not getting the lands. And Cling to Dust is just a draw card for a draw card, so it's not a big deal. It got like a weak card as well. That sucks. Womp womp. Kept a 2-lander, didn't find the other lands. I did cut 1 land, right? Or I cut both of them. Womp womp again. Soaring Thought Thief. So at least we get the Skyclave, though. Yeah. So I kept a risky hand, hoping for the only thing that, our only saving grace is going to mill lands now, right? Only one land. All right, we got some lands we can draw into. We're not in terrible shape, actually. There we go. That's what we want to see. Probably end up casting that. Can we, is the question. Can we play this tempo-based route? Oh, I don't have my... Yeah, I don't have my, So we're just going to... Actually, I'm just going to cast a Storm. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I am not. I might just actually... Yeah, Into the Royal, though, I am going to cast. So we can actually Into the Royal right now. We got to slow our opponent down. So next, I'm surprised my opponent didn't cast it. I was hoping my opponent would cast it, and then we could have a free turn of actually... So my opponent is holding up mana. So... Of course, we'll go black here. I don't think I want to go for the Skyclave. I think the move is... Storm the Sea Caller. I think this is the move. Because either way, we get 2 cards out of my opponent's hand. Essence Scatter. We actually get to eliminate the... There we go. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. We are in decent shape. We're in decent... Not good shape, decent shape. Opponent has just a wad of cards. So let's take a gander at that wad of cards with the duress. Unfortunately, I had to use a negate, drown in the lock, counter a creature unless I have 8 in the graveyard. Drown is just the best card here. I mean, it wasn't the greatest. Oh boy, that's exactly what I wanted my opponent to do. Because it's not another Soaring Sky Thief out, which I think is actually more powerful than countering that. So that is perfect. Now, if we go for a land, too, we can get 2 Skyclaves. So, no land, though. And it's all sorcery nonsense. Ugh. And we know my opponent's got a negate. So we need to get both of these out, and then going to flash in the other one. But we know our opponent's hand. We know the... Yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. We're in decent shape here. So I get milled 4. And they're non-lands. And we get a land. So... Gosh, I kind of want to cast these. So there is that. So let's go with a Bloodchief's Thirst. And allow it to happen, huh? So, do we go for... a Shade? No, I need to get this brick. So this one's gonna get countered. Yep, there's the negate. So we're in the same position we are last turn. We did get one of the counter spells out of the way and a Soaring Thought Thief. And Temple, huh? So same thing. We're going to do the exact same... Oh, we're not going to do the exact same play. Opponent allows it to happen. I wonder if I should have waited a turn for that. Because we can't kick it. I mean, that's fine. Anti-cognition's fine. It gets a spell out of the way. 2 Soaring Thieves are out of the way. It does get a Scry, though. That's true. And it finds a Thief Guild Enforcer. So Extinction Event is gone. Let's see if my opponent has one more removal spell. So let's go... Oh. 3. You know what? I think this is actually better. Yeah, I think it is. So one of them we can kick. And the other one we can just cast. So that one gets Essence scattered. And this shade just gets played. And we're definitely down to the wire. Look at that grip full of counter magic. I'm already down to 7 just with 2 creatures. Oh, and that was the last card, wasn't it, to the story? Yikes. So we probably should be able to get an extinction event off, though. Yeah, with just a black, absolutely. But, I mean, there's plenty of other stuff. Oh, can I do a Necromentia? Because we just get the other, Nah, we go extinction event here. For odd. Oh, we can do both. And what do I want to name here? Yeah, I think we still go Thieves. What is the name of the card? Thieves Guild Enforcer? Is there any in the graveyard? But it's kind of a weird card with Necromentia. I don't know if I actually like it. Oh, I had another one, huh? So let's pick the other guy then. Let's pick because there's 2 of those. So let's go. I still actually think Thieves Guild Enforcer is the route to go. So lands though. So library, we get 2 of them out. We have 1 turn to top deck. Block it. Oh, because this Skyclave. This is what I'm saying. If it block, it'd be fine. I think you just go for the Castle Lock Twin, then utilize it. I have 1 draw. We have 1 draw to try to make it, and it unfortunately is a land. Pretty close though. We kept that really loose hand. Didn't draw the lands early, and there you have it. We actually lose a rank. No. All right, I'm going to try one more. That was a pretty fun, interesting game, though. But again, you have to outplay your opponents. There's no way that this deck isn't be able to compete with something like Rogues. The power level of the cards that just synergize perfectly, like the Drown, the Locks, being able to be basically even better than a counterspell in that deck, as it destroys creatures as well. But all right, let's play one more. See what we are up against Rodri, who's playing the furry. Oh boy. So anyway, absolutely suggestions in the comment section below. Again, I wonder how Drown in the Lock will work in this deck, if it's worthwhile putting in my deck, because it does have some synergy with that Snapcaster Mage. This, of course, a keepable hand. We have 4 mana. We have Seagate Restoration that can kind of get us back in. I actually haven't been very impressed with this card in the deck, but the downside is so low. It's 3 life if I have to have it untapped, which in a lot of matchups doesn't matter. It's a good sign with our opponent starting off with Fabled Passage. Okay, Core Chronicler was exactly what we wanted to see, because it can ditch the unnecessary lands, or like the Seagate, or if it were going up against like a Nugan deck, the Extinction. And hopefully my opponent will let me scry and realize they have a Fabled Passage. I am actually going to ditch that. I don't want it right now. I don't think it gets me anywhere. And there's the Fabled Passage, and hopefully this will give us a little bit of information what we're playing against. And is going to be a Mountain, so most likely Gruul. Gruul's tough because we really can't beat the Great Henge, and then Embercleave is also an issue. It's always been an issue. That's the issue. Those 2 like really busted cards just really put these decks from having like I was explaining in the the deck tech having these holes in their game plan to no holes where it can just recover. You know, a Great Henge is like greater than any board wipe because it can just recover and draw a billion cards. Embercleave can just simply win the game, especially if you like chain fabled passages with some of the landfall creatures. Good news is we have a pretty decent startup with roosts, and then roosts into the royal, or roost into and then extinction event to really get us there too. Is going to be quite powerful. We have the Corehelm Chronicler. There are a couple of plays I can go here, like roost this turn. It's going to be Bone Crusher Giant, huh? So do I want to go roost and then play a Chronicler? Or have a big Into the Royal next turn and get... I think that is the better play than playing Chronicler, to be honest. I hope I don't... I guess I have the Into the Royal as backup. In case, like, well, Great Henge comes down. Great Henge can't quite come down. This also gives me more versatility with Extinction Event. If it's another even. Yeah, then we just slam... I believe we just slam an Extinction Event. I think it would be... Nope, it's a Mammoth, huh? Alright, so no play here. We just go Fabled Passage and pass a turn. Oh, wait. Extinction Event was great there. Yeah, Extinction Event was really good there. Yeah. That was my bad. So now we have to decide where we want to go. Like, throw Great Henge back. Huh. So I think we're going to throw Great Henge back. And we'll take a blue here. And... Whoa! Okay, not past the blockers. Almost messed that up. We'll kill the Bone Crusher Giant and go to 11. But unfortunately, I think I do need to go Extinction. Why was I thinking this was an even, not an odd? Okay, that's fine. We'll just block the Kazandu here now, and then we'll throw out the... Okay, that's actually okay too. So block here, take 4, and then Extinction Event. And our opponent's stuck with a Great Henge, but Great Henge is coming back out with the Bone Crusher, unfortunately. Hope maybe we can get some value again by bouncing it one more time. So start off with a Temple. Temple gives us a little more idea. Gadwig's perfect here. Extinction Event on odds. Opponent's got Great Henge and one other. But I'm not quite sure. Of course it's a Questing Beast. And Questing Beast is good about getting Great Henge out. Questing Beast is really rough because because Great Henge, it reduces it. Yeah, I'm pretty much screwed there. And then I don't have ways to. So, unfortunately, Seagate, you're just going to come into play tapped. And... Oh, shoot. I should have actually saved that. To go Chronicler and then Into the Royal with the Great... No, that's not going to work. We have to do Into the Royal this turn. And unfortunately, it's these... Everything has 2 damage on it. Everything has haste. Everything has trample, evasion. Yep, and that's just that. And there's not much I can do. I swing back the Questing Beast. It doesn't do anything. But I gotta go for it. Oh boy. That's no good. So I do get 2 drakes. We can start attacking, and maybe we could... Now, there's no way we're doing the Great Henge here. So... 4, 9, I'd have to keep everything back. No, Gadwick can actually block a Bone Crusher. I don't think there's a way we can beat the Great Henge. I'm going to try for it, though, because we can draw 4. And no attacks. That gives us a blocker and a blocker. And possibly we can outvalue it, but this is going to be extremely rough. Just how broken this stupid card is. Too much value. So, we're going to get cleaved here anyway. And just lose the game. Yep, the 2 broken Throne of Eldraine cards get us. All right, let's go on to the next game. There's not... See, that's the problem. We can't... We have to just keep in... Like, I could bring in Necromentia and get the Great Henge. Is that our only hope versus this? I think we have to. Like, that's the one card. I think I want to have one. Like, I could understand just keeping in the Fae of Wishes and then grabbing it from the sideboard. I don't bring any of these cards in. We have kind of a decent little strategy. Inscription Insight's actually okay in this matchup. Jace is actually weak because of Questing Beast. You know, Jace is just such a liability. So I'm going to bring in a 1 of Necromentia, and that can name the Great Henge, but we're still in... We still have a huge issue versus many of the other cards. I don't know. Great Henge was a mistake. If they printed arguably the best power for commemorative mana cost ever in the exact same set that they printed the Great Henge. So what I've been talking about is that decks just build themselves. Is you're like, okay, well, here's a 5/5 Lovestruck Beast. That reduces the cost of Great Henge on curve. So on turn 4, then you can Henge. And then you can start pumping out other creatures, making them bigger, gaining life, and drawing a card for a card that was very easy to just throw down. It's not terrible in multiples because if it does get answered, your multiple is going to get you back into the game. It just does too much out of one card, and I think they really overestimated that 9 mana cost to actually like be an issue to just chuck out. And same thing with like Embercleave. The exact same problem with Embercleave is we had cards like Temur Battle Rage who were already good enough. And they were one-time uses, though. And if they got bounced or they had these glaring holes. But a card like Embercleave, you answer once, you still have to continue to answer. And yes, there might be scenarios where you get blown out by playing these cards. But the times where these cards win you the game versus the time that you get blown out are few and far between. So unfortunately, the mulligan into a heavy lander is probably going to be the difference between this game here. Yeah. That's why I kind of prefer Pauper, is that you don't have these big haymakers like you do in like Standard, where these spells can just really just get you back in the game without any sort of setup, really. Just really independently good by themselves. So what's the worst card here? A Swamp or a... Yeah, Swamp the worst card? Or Fabled Passage? Fabled Passage is the worst card. Yeah, Fabled Passage. So we'll start with Temple of Deceit. And we'll get rid of that. Other it's going to get shuffled back in with the Fabled Passage. There's the Lovestruck. Heartless Act. We don't need to do that. We'll just go Swamp. And we can be taking damage here. That's the card we want to kill. It's another, like I said, decks build themselves when you pair up Lovestruck Beast and Edgewalled Innkeeper. Gives you a no-brainer. This can be a blue. We have double on the Extinction event. We'll have to see how... Sometimes I like to just kill the 1/1s and they have the Lovestruck Beast left over, but we can't like deal with a Henge. There's a Mountain. Take the 1. Let's see if Lovestruck just comes down. that's the case, we just maul it, and I have to sorcery speed maul. Okay, that's actually better. We'll Blood Chief's Thirst it. But we do need to find some catch-up cards. So I hope my opponent throws out 2 elementals and swings for 3. That would be the best case scenario. But I think we're pretty far behind. We did cut some of the cards that get us back in this too, like Gadwigs. Okay. A Mammoth and deciding not to run out as a land. And so, it's going to be the exact same scenario this turn. Not going to play the Mauling out. Hopefully it plays an even card here. Okay, so we get some value off of this. Sort of, even though that one didn't cost a card. Okay. Okay. I think Henge is coming out. Such a fair card. So fair. Do another even card. Just go crazy on the evens. Nothing. Chronicler's weird here. I think I have to just take 3, Bone Crusher Giant possibly. Okay, so Chronicler's fine because it can find us a roost. Doesn't give us a blocker though because Brushfire Elemental can't be blocked. That's kind of a weird card. I hate that. So taking 3? Then I have to keep up the mauling. It did get us a Seagate Stormcaller. Which I don't know if it's going to be able to do much. Yeah, Seagate Storm is actually good if we go land. If we go land, we get the mauling that takes both of them. I'm afraid what's going to happen is Bone Crusher Giant on the Corehelm Chronicler. Scavenging Ooze. Okay, so even's actually really good here. Because I'm not worried about the Ooze. The Ooze actually doesn't hurt my deck whatsoever. My opponent doesn't realize that Brushfire Elemental, how it works. So autopay, let's see here, we're going to go even. I mean, sure, if you want to kill your own graveyard to gain some life. I don't think life's the issue. The issue is if I can keep you off Great Henge and then find my roosts and start tempoing, then I'll be fine. So even. My thing's an odd. And I will attack in because we do need to get some damage in. Because I can't block any of his haste creatures. Literally can't block any of his haste creatures. So that's the haste and that's the haste. Lovestruck Beast. Lovestruck. I still want to keep him off Henge. Another Brushfire Elemental, huh? So to get land here, Agonizing Remorse is kind of interesting. The thing is we have to go, and the storm, bounce? No, we gotta do it right now. I'm gonna do it right now. Yeah, Remorse ended up being bad. Brushfire Elemental is 2 turns to kill me. We can have Into the Royal to start. Opponent just keeps running gas, 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 though. Questing bees, huh? Now Bone Crusher to the face. Okay, so we lost here, I believe. Yeah, because my opponent just recasts both of them. So I go into the Royal and hope to draw something. So I do need the mana. This Agonized Remorse is terrible. We can't even use anymore. Can't block any of them. Because both these have this clause they can't be blocked. Because haste to put with can't be blocked is always a good idea. And I don't really have much that has... So I have to kick it, of course. Yes, I like a two outer here. Oh, just a Bone Crusher Giant to begin with. Oh, when you have it all, you have it all. And that's kind of typically how these decks go. Like, again, like I said, I think I've tuned this deck for as much as possible. All of that damage, like all of what we took that game, were the added abilities on these cards that have pushed these cards into the territory of where they're on a power level of their own. I mean, I'm even to the point where I don't think Siege Rhino would be playable in Standard. They just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed the power level of it. But you got to see the top two matchups. This is typically what you're going to see. So, of course, you're not going to go far with a deck like this. I think that I gave an overall showing of how it can work, how it does function. There are some crazier things that can happen where when you start to get big mana, you start to have answers for everything. But unfortunately, that's just the name of the game right now is this. You got to play the Questing Beasts. You got to play the Lovestruck. All these cards that have so much attached to them where they just do everything. They must answer threat after must answer threat. Makes it very, very tough to play this tit for tat type Magic that I enjoy the most. But not going to stop us from trying. I hope you enjoyed this brew. I enjoyed building it. We do have some other brews coming up. I have some other people work with me. Like I think you've met Scrawn before. He's done some YouTube videos on my channel. He has a Pioneer, or not a Pioneer, but a historic version of actually using the Skyclave Relic with a infinite combo. It is very janky, but maybe if jank is your cup of tea, be looking for that video. Again, I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. We'll give you one more showdown of the deck with the Dimir Kicking It. Not much I would change here with it. Those are two of the matchups that are actually rough. Yorion is pretty decent, and so is the all-in decks where you can rip out their key cards is pretty 50-50. This deck isn't terrible, but it's not a mythic deck for sure. Anyway, this is Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.